All right, guys, welcome to this episode of Ops Unfiltered. Today we have a very special guest, Alessandra. Welcome to Ops Unfiltered, Alessandra.
Thank you so much for having me. I was so
As
excited
you,
when you guys reached out.
yeah, we're pumped to have you. Alessandra, she has deep background in operations, especially for e-commerce companies. We came across Alessandra as she was the COO of Healthy Roots Dolls. They were a former client of ours, and that's where we met. Alessandra and I have talked offline. She's interacted a lot with Josh and Brendan, so our head of accounts and our CTO, and yeah, we have really good things to say about her. Alessandra, can you introduce yourself real fast? Why are you so passionate about e-commerce ops, and where do you come from? Give us the lowdown.
Yeah. So I'm currently the COO of Healthy Roots Dolls. We are a doll company that empowers and gives, diversity to the toy aisle for Black and brown girls to make sure they have dolls that look like them and love their hair. Our dolls are really cool because you can actually wash and style them and do braids and
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And so I also have my own consulting company, Roebling Innovation and Consulting, where through that I will take clients of all sizes that look to me for supply chain strategy, operational process development, and through there I'm right now working with Jang, which is a beverage company, which I think we have a meeting next week or this week because I want to onboard Luminous.
Thanks for the referral.
Of course. And so that through there, I'm, helping the founder kind of get supply chain ops off his plate because he's scaling the business and closing a funding round. And his background actually really isn't in manufacturing and ops. Then I'm a partner and do a lot of fractional work just because of the stage of the company. But for Ginger Snap, it's a ginger water company that my best friend founded. And yeah. So I co-founder there. But I was thinking about, how am I passionate about e-commerce? And I think it actually is rooted in, I'm very passionate about supply chain in general. And so I feel like e-commerce is like that. I look at it as if you look at supply chain, it's like the last mile, right? It's like that piece of getting the product to your customers. But my background actually began all the way at the beginning from the manufacturing. And then as my career developed, I went further down. So it made me the e-commerce portion, which I'm equally as versed or
knowledgeable
working with. Yeah, as e-commerce, but I'm also really passionate about retail. Retail is totally different.
What year would you say you got into supply chain or manufacturing?
So funny enough, my mom and my grandmother and my great aunt in the late 80s, before I was born, founded what ended up being Venezuela's largest cosmetic salon and brand. At their peak, before all of the economic turmoil that happened over there, they grew it to about 10 stores internationally: Dominican Republic, Venezuela, United States. And I grew up in their different stores and under my mom's desk. And my mom did effectively what I do for operations. And that's where I, at a very young age, was I wanted to help. And so I filed invoices and I would listen to her talk to different manufacturers and negotiate, what was going to be white labeled and what was going to be internal and inventory systems. So in terms of manufacturing, I remember it since I was really young, understanding, how they structured the IP of the brand. And then that was each store was its own entity. And this is before e-commerce was a thing.
Yeah.
So the verbiage and the way of working was really natural to me. And then as time went on, I went to school for computer science and business. And so I was a terrible engineer. I suck at coding. I really do. I'm so bad. I don't have the patience. I like to chit chat and hang out. And coding is kind of not chit chat or hang out. So I did product management, which is a blend of creating creating digital products, or sometimes even like physical hardware products that align with like a business goals, but like what the customer wants. And it has to all be data driven, because you have to like convince all the engineers, and you have to convince the executives, like, why are we going to build this? And at the same time, I started my own trucking company while I was working at a SoftBank company.
Good old fashioned hustler. That's awesome.
I was like, why not? I actually met someone, and like, I'll be very clear. Like, I met someone who made a lot of money in trucking, and I don't want to say I didn't find them to be particularly intelligent, but I was like, if they could do it, I could do it. You know, it was just very like clear. So then I got even deeper into like supply chain. And that's where I went to like even like, I guess, the middle part as I look at it.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. So what I've noticed, what seems to be a common thread in your story is if you're paired with like a creative founder that doesn't know supply chain, that doesn't understand logistics, that doesn't understand warehouse operations and outsourcing to a 3PL and all these things, you're great. It's great to pair your mind with one of those creative founders. And that's what you've done at Healthy Root Stalls and some of the other companies that you have fractional work or that you're a co-founder of. So obviously on this podcast, we try to dive into the really messy beginnings and really the messy operations that happen with e-commerce companies. So I obviously we know some of the complexities that have happened with Healthy Root Stalls. I'd love to hear a little bit more from you. What were the complexities in Healthy Root Stalls operations that led them to hire you? And what have you been dealing with ever since you came on board?
Yeah. So something that is, I don't want to say it doesn't only exist in the toy industry, but as you know, depending on what industries you're in, your forecasting and your sales cycles are very unique. So toys, holiday season, like you're looking at, you're honestly preparing the entire year. You're doing all your manufacturing cycles to make sure that you can like kill it in winter, fall. Like that is your boom, regardless if it's retail or e-commerce. Mm-hmm. So I joined in September, which is like, all right, POs are sitting there, like you're waiting to fulfill. And I didn't really get the chance to do the operational landscape discovery work that I would normally do, because I'm like, we have inventory that people are waiting for. We have, huge POs from some of the biggest retailers in the United States. Like I was so focused on delivery that, it got a little bit messy, and, we learned at the end that there were ripple effects, right, to that. But the way that I got involved with Healthy Root Stalls is, so my first boss ever at an AI company here in Miami, years after I stopped working there, it was like a startup. We had about like $11 million in funding. He ended up becoming a venture capitalist. So he founded Lightship Capital, Brian Brackeen. It's a amazing fund that serves and helps give opportunities to minority founders, as well as a separate fund that invests in other minority-led funds, which is really cool. And he called me, and I think like the way I got here today with my career is like almost everything I've done is through word of mouth. Like my reputation that I really know I've earned. He called me, he goes, Alessandra, I know everything about you career-wise and what you've done. Like I have a company in my portfolio that I think could really use your help. What do you think?
Oh,
so that's how I got into it. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So you said when you first got there, you totally focused on just delivery dates or delivery times for the open purchase orders for the big box retailers. And you said that had ripple effects. How did you, so you walk in September or in the fall, you've got these open POs and you've got timelines that you have to meet in a supply chain that you didn't set up. Where do you even start? So, cause like what I'm curious about is for any operator who's in your shoes, who just came into a job, maybe they're director of ops or COO, and they're running a $5 million brand. They didn't set up the supply chain, but all of a sudden their hair's on fire. Everybody's like, where's this? Where's that? How did you even start? Do you start talking to the 3PL first? Do you start with the retailers? Do you where do you even start?
You know, it wasn't just the operational landscape that was like a big question mark for me. It was also like, that was the first time that I had worked very closely or was responsible for EDI stuff and getting into platforms like Partners Online,
EDI.
Partners Online, and, you know, Macy's Net. And those things were really new to me because I had worked like adjacent to them, but never to where like I'm responsible to answering for everything.
Yeah.
And it was also a little messy at Healthy Root Stalls because there was a lot of the operations were outsourced previously through, you know, I guess like in a way like consulting firms, or they would have different vendors that would manage different relationships, and they never had an internal ops person that could. Because it doesn't, like, you can have one group that's like managing your relationship with a certain retailer, but they're like someone else is doing the fulfillment and supply chain. And if they're not talking to each other properly, there's a lot of like, it's not smooth. It's not smooth. So,
so this is actually one of the most interesting things about e-commerce operations and why it's so challenging to come in, because if you're say you come in as a CEO of a $5 million brand, it's so common in e-commerce to outsource every single piece of your operation, because at the beginning you're just trying to get sales. You don't, this thing could be out of business in 3 years. So what that looks like normally is you outsource fulfillment to a 3PL, maybe multiple 3PLs. You even outsource big box retail sales to a third party. You outsource maybe the product sourcing part to a supply chain person.
Yeah.
You definitely outsourced all of your accounting. It's fractional work. You might even get a fractional COO. So the problem that you run into is like you don't have one single person owning it that's supposed to like put it all together. Like it's nuts.
So that was coming back to your question earlier, like how I did it. The one thing that as I figured things out, so, you know, basic things like doing the training for Partners Online, SPS Commerce I found out the hard way that like once you send a document, like can't like unsend it. So figuring out who to contact about, you know, hey, I accidentally sent an invoice with the same ID, and how do you rectify it, and the nomenclature and all of that. The biggest help that I had on making it happen, and I can't even and it's because I don't want to take the credit for it, is that I have someone that I've worked with in the past who has 35 years of experience in mostly manufacturing, but knew supply chain so well to where they were just a master executor, and they like dove in and had a lot of experience in like import and export, to where they like knew, okay, so there's a system called Ship IQ, and then the 3PL is going to give you your weights and dimensions. And they knew how to contract carriers really well. Because I came from the trucking side, which is more like the broker telling you, hey, you have this is the rate you're going to get per mile. You're going to pick it up and you're going to drop it off there. This is the shipper side, you know, the consignee side. And they knew warehouse operations and timelines. And I am a firm believer in, to be a leader, or if you're going to manage something to grow, you have to know what you don't know, which is like another reason I kind of brought in a micro ERP like Luminous.
Oh, I feel like that's such good advice. Because the thing is, when you're a fractional CO or a CO of all of these different, I just imagine that you're not going to be an expert on manufacturing, on fulfillment, on warehouse operations, on account. Like, no, you have to know what you don't know, so that you can actually get the support that you need to fill in your knowledge gaps.
Yeah, and that's why it's important to know your infrastructure, and that's why like it's not that I was operating in a place where I didn't know my landscape. I figured it out as pieces went along, but like the big challenges I had is when you're in the peak season, like once you even identify where changes need to be made, like that is not the time to consolidate inventory. That is not the time to change warehouses. That is not the time to onboard new vendors. And also with retail and even with e-commerce, like your customer, regardless of who it is, like you want to be very sure in what you tell them when it comes to like delivery dates or when it comes to quality or anything like that. So it sucked because I knew what needed to be accomplished, but a lot of the times, you know, like you want to make sure it's done in the best or most efficient way possible. So I was very tight in like, we could really cut costs here. And like, I couldn't make the move to cut costs. So it's like, all right, we're just going to run with what we have. You know, I think you heard about my 3PL nightmare. So,
oh yeah, let's dive into that. Well, so just to close that loop real fast, when, you know, as a new COO parachuting into this new role, there's like a phase where you just kind of, you didn't set the supply chain. So you're just kind of assessing and understanding everything that's going on.
Yeah. And being like, why is this like this? Like there were some things I'm like, why, you know?
And you put out the most urgent fires. You prioritized, you know, good delivery times on the outstanding POs. And then once you kind of got your wits around you, then you started making some of the moves. Speaking of which, 3PLs. Man, why is it so difficult to find a good 3PL for e-commerce operators? Why do you think?
So a lot of companies with e-commerce, if you have a strong e-commerce business, a lot of companies will end up or trying to at least get into retailers, because that's where like in one order you'll make like $250,000, you know, which can really drive. And also your COGS are lower because you're not having all the like marketing expenses. And it's kind of just, you're also not paying shipping because most retailers will just have a truck come pick it up. So why is it so hard okay, here's the thing. I think it is, everybody says that they can do it. And then the companies that are able to, you know, if you're in the e-commerce business, you're probably going to Google or get referrals of like who can do what I'm looking for. And the ones with the money to get in front of people and the ones who like can get media coverage or articles or big customers or have like that marketing are going to be the ones that are most like they're getting in front of people, which doesn't mean that you're good. It just means that you have a lot of money to get customers. And if you have a lot of money spent on marketing, that means that you usually have a big operation, which means you have a lot of people who work for you. And so rarely you're going to get like a dedicated point of contact. And also sometimes the bigger companies or the companies that are like just can market themselves in a really convincing way, I've found that you kind of get the treatment that based on the revenue you bring the business. So we went with. So
you're a small fish in a massive pond. It's like technically they can do what you need them to do, but you would almost. Are you saying you would rather be a little bit bigger of a fish in that 3PL's clientele?
Yeah, or now I'm actually in the process of moving to a new 3PL because of issues that we've had, and we'll go into those too with the other ones, to where like I think especially for e-commerce brands that would use a platform like Luminous, you want to have a dedicated point of contact, because guess what? At your business, you have a dedicated point of contact. Like if I'm going to talk to Luminous, I'm going to know that every time I'm talking to Josh, I'm not going through support at blah, blah, blah. And then there's 24 to 48 hours response time. And then it's one person for this and one person for that. And you have to repeat your story over and over again with the issue that you're having. And everyone says that they can do it. And yes, I think a lot of people can do it, but what I've had a really hard time finding is a company that can do retail fulfillment and e-commerce at the same time, because there's different requirements: case packing, packaging, kitting, palletizing, and then they share SKUs. So you need to have someone who can say, okay, this is the order, this is where it's coming from, this, because it's going here, it needs to be packaged this way, and make sure those inventory counts are accurate. And it's been a mess. But I've actually just transitioned to a new 3PL that's amazing. They're called Everlasting Love Fulfillment, based out of Atlanta.
Oh, nice.
We were referred to them from Target. They were like, hey, this 3PL has a bunch of, they have a bunch of our vendors, or a bunch of our suppliers. They have really good metrics, because that's another thing. Metrics are important in e-commerce because you want to, that's how you kind of measure the health of your business, or you set certain goals, or you can like look at trends. But in retail, your metrics are important, at least for someone like Target, because you're measured on like, are you shipping on time? No, we're fining you. Are you sending your ASN in time? No, that's another chargeback. You didn't do the right case pack, chargeback. Where it can really hurt like your reputation, but like your bottom line too.
Do you think, this is a question for you, I'm curious what your thoughts are. Do you think e-commerce, do you think modern brands should wait a little bit until they have their operations dialed in before they go to big box retail? Because it sounds like, you know, you can blow your reputation if you don't have your shit together. Obviously you inherited everything that was how Healthy Root Stall's supply chain was set up and the open POs. Like in hindsight, would you sort of let's cool it for a little bit. Like let's get everything set up. Let's find a really good 3PL. Do you think that's a good idea for most brands?
I think for most brands, yes. For Healthy Root Stalls, like I think we had already been in supply in big box retailers for years. So like the infrastructure was set up. It was just getting a handle on it. But for most brands, so a lot of brands do one of two things. They get into big box retailers and they don't realize the additional operational resources that are required. Like now you need to have an accounts payable or accounts receivable department. Now you have to do an audit. Like let's say I get a chargeback. Let's say it's a really big chargeback, like $100,000. You have to then go through and be like, what happened? How did I get this chargeback? Let me open these cases. Let me open disputes. And like, then you have to manage the fulfillment, and then you're managing carriers. Like it's, aside from like your reputation, like it is just a whole different ballgame. And so a lot of e-commerce companies will either be like, oh my God, this is so exciting, I'm going to get into the big box retailer, and then they fail, or they can't afford to sustainably stay there. And so they'll drop out because they're like, this is actually way more convoluted than we had anticipated. Like you really need you're a whole person that would just deal with retail fulfillment. Like it's not like, hey, I'm just gonna get into it or do it, and then even trying to get into multiple at once. Like my recommendation for a company is like, okay, you're in e-commerce, like, and you want to get into retail, like start maybe taking on smaller brands that you're just getting your POs through email. You can kind of like easily manage
like specialty wholesale.
Yeah. And then you're going to be like, okay, now I'm familiar on like contracting carriers, and now I'm familiar on, it's like much lower stakes. And then when you're like, okay, I can supply a big one, and then I have the time to do EDI training. I have time to do vendor onboarding, which is hours. Like even
we have
today,
a
I was
good system that's architected for it.
Yeah. I mean, that's already tough today, but this week I have like 10 hours of training for, you know, because there's new stuff coming out. They're like, we're updating our system. We have these new requirements. Like, and when it comes to like the big box retailers, like you need to show transparency in your supply chain. Like you have to have very rigorous product testing and safety requirements. Like you need to know the regulations that you are being, like, that you have to adhere to. Like it costs a lot to be in these retailers. And I think people think it's a great, it's fun and it's exciting, and it's terrifying. It's terrifying.
Oh, that was such good advice. That's so true. And in fact, we just signed on a company called Thread Wallets. So they're a really big company here in Utah. They're amazing. The way they approached specialty wholesale and big box retail was like you were saying, and I think they've done it really well. Like they start out as e-commerce, they nailed the product, and then they slowly got into like smaller accounts, and then they got into Shields and then some bigger ones. I think that's great advice. Running an e-commerce company, it's really like cowboy business. It's like the wild, wild west. You can just like, you throw shit on the website and like sometimes it blows up and it just gets fulfilled. And there's no testing or anything. But when you go to big box retailers, like it's got to pass a drop test and it has to be IS 9227, whatever certifications.
Pennsylvania has a unique flammability test that we have to go through. There's like supplier transparency. And when you're in food and beverage, like that's a whole, like once you're dealing with consumables, like there's all of it, like you need to have a food testing and safety plan, ethical sort, like both have ethical sourcing, but I mean, it's a whole thing.
Yeah. And it makes sense that's why you would give that advice, because, it's relatively, the barriers to entry to do business online, very low. It's like, get a product, throw it up, somebody pays for it, they send it, and like Shopify automatically sends out the tracking number. But that EDI workflow, it's old school. Like,
and you can
there's
do
like
a drip
17 steps.
campaign. Oh, and some of them they're all different. Like I'm holding off on onboarding with certain retailers because I'm like, I don't have the time to go through to be like well versed in a whole new system and deal with a whole new way of dealing chargebacks and new people. Like I don't want to, I'm not there yet to do it. But with e-commerce which is also why I really like it, is to kind of contrast the two, is with e-commerce, you really own your customer. And so you can do things like drip campaigns, and you can look at kind of, who you're selling to, which gives you data to improve your product, versus retailers, which Target is my client. So I don't get, and if you're in all the stores like we are, like I don't know who is directly buying the product. I don't get to send them, like with our dolls. I mean, there's educational, toys to take care of your hair, and I don't get to send them, an email or a link with, tutorials on different hairstyles that the girls can do. I don't get to send them promotions on when new products come out. So it's very different, and then the cost associated with it. It's just, but e-commerce like operates itself in a very much cleaner way, I would say.
Got it.
It's easier to automate more so. It's easier to automate.
Yeah, no, it's really good advice for brands wanting to get into big box retail and wholesale. Now I'm curious
because like Fair and Air Goods. Have you ever heard of them?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Fair and Air Goods, which are like I think are really cool, like middle ground to getting to big box retailers, because you are getting like wholesale, you are getting special visibility from like, I guess there would be specialty or like boutique stores. And you're having that like PO process. Because like when you're on Shopify, like you're not getting POs, you're not sending invoices, there aren't terms, you're not coordinating carriers. And I feel like brands go, like if you want to get to that point, a platform like Fair and Air Goods is just another channel that most people like don't even know about. I didn't know about it for a while.
Okay. So I think to sum up your advice for brands, it's if you're a brand looking to get into wholesale, big box retail, first off, there's a lot of things you're probably not considering. There's a lot of complexities and infrastructure in your supply chain and in your company that you need to think about. So to get your at bats, go to platforms like Fair. Start with small specialty wholesale accounts and then slowly scale into the big dogs so that you're actually ready for it.
Yeah, and then once you're in wholesalers, like even on a platform like Fair and Air Goods, like probably like my first recommendation in tandem with making sure you're tight on your operations is like you need to be really tight on your financials. Like you need current COGS. You need to figure out your COGS for each run. If you're importing, it's not like, okay, the dolls cost X dollars to create. Like my cost,
Yep.
if I look at it's shipping. Like during peak season for freight from China, like my cogs are way different than if I'm, ordering, when a cargo ship maybe cost me 9,000 versus like 25,000. So that should drive what you price at. Like you will have to take a cut in your margin when you're doing like a company's ordering like thousands and thousands of units, maybe tens of thousands of units. And sometimes it's like, can you afford to? And at what number does it, can you afford to do it?
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, you brought up a good point. There's a lot of times when you start in e-commerce, you don't price it with enough margin to go to retail, because a good rule of thumb is like it's like landed cost times like 4 or 5x markup. And a lot of people on e-commerce, because it's direct to consumer and maybe they weren't thinking about the business going into big box retail, they might have just marked it up 2x, and there's not enough room to sell that, because the retailer, from what I've heard, a good rule of thumb is whatever you price to the retailer, they're going to 2x that. So if you to get their margin. So yeah, if you're selling,
and they're going to sell at what you sell at. So if our dolls sell online for $84, I need to sell it at a price where they can sell it for $84. Because you can't have different prices for in person versus online.
So to make the math easy for this example, what I've seen is my widget costs $250. It cost me $250 landed cost. I sell it on e-commerce for $5, and I'm like, heck yeah, I'm getting great margin, amazing. Then I go to then I start branching out to big box retail, and it's like, well, I mean, I'll offer it to them for $4, and like, whoa, dude, you sell it for $5, and you're getting $4. Like, we have to sell this to $8, at least $8 for us to get margin, and we can't do that because we'll just go to your website and buy it. So it's that pricing strategy. You have to think it out. You have to make sure that there's enough room for, if you go big box retail or wholesale, like your pricing is enough room.
It also drives, because there will be probably a point where if you're really making that jump to like huge volumes, and even if it's huge volumes in e-commerce and you're really growing, I have found that sometimes there's a part where your margin's going to be tight, but then once you're doing huge volumes, that can inform, you can go back to your manufacturer and be like, hey, I'm actually going to triple my order. What pricing can you give me? Or I'm going to book my freight in advance because I know that I'm going to have a manufacturing run done at this time. What's the best price that you can give me? So then you can optimize internally to make that margin with the big box retailer.
Nice. Yeah. So always leverage your quantities. Like, I guess you can use big box retail, big PO runs to leverage a lower price to make sure you do have some room for margin.
Yeah. And then thinking about like cash flow, like CPG is, I mean, unless you're doing drop shipping, and I don't really know a lot about drop shipping because I don't deal, like we like all our products are custom, whether it's the drink companies that I work with or the doll company. It's not like we're just kind of white labeling anything. But with CPG companies, they're capital intensive. Like, let's say you get a PO that, or even a forecast, like, hey, in 6 months, I'm going to make $1 million order. And I don't have $1 million worth of inventory right now, but I want to make that sale. Now you're in a position where like, okay, do you have enough cash on hand to put up? Let's say you're in a really good position with your manufacturer and they're like half and half. You're like, all right, I need to put, say your run to make $1 million, to sell $1 million worth of product. You need to put down, let's say it's going to cost you $500,000. Like, okay, cool. 50-50 terms, which is very hard to get, especially in a new relationship. That means you're going to have to wire $250,000.
Yeah.
And then when it's done, usually before it gets to you, when it's done, send the other $250, pay to get it over here. And then so you can fill up here. If you don't have the money, and if let's say your lead time, like I need the product and you're going to sell it in 6 months, you have a 4-month lead time. Like you need to put that order in advance, and that capital's tied up until you get it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very capital intensive. And so another thing when you're looking to go into big box retailers, like, or you're just having an explosion with with e-commerce is like, can you afford to have the capital on hand? But the good thing is when you're with big box retailers, you can do things like factoring your accounts receivables. You can do things like, PO financing, where you can say, hey, here, I'm going to go to this bank. I have a PO for 150 grand or $2 million. Can you advance me what I need to manufacture to hit it? And they'll be like, sure. And then they'll charge you a certain rate, which you can't really do with e-commerce. It's different capital instruments.
Isn't that, you just brought up yet another great point on what people don't consider when they go to big box retail. Because the e-commerce, like you said, it has really quick cash cycles and cash turns. So like they pay the money and then Shopify deposits it, or Amazon, they'll deposit it 2 times a month. It's quick turns. Like you could sell something and fulfill it and you're getting cash like the next day on Shopify. So the operators get used to not having to plan out their cash flow. And then all of a sudden, you have net 90 payment terms with Target, and you have to front the cash for, like you said, something with a 4-month lead time. So as an e-commerce company who's operating typically like get the cash immediately, you're not really planning, it's cowboy, and like you don't really keep that much money in the bank. All of a sudden it's like, we accepted the $1 million PO. Yeah. You accept the $1 million PO, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, I don't have $250,000 to put down for the product.
And then how am I going to get it? Okay, cool. Let me go try to finance the PO. Okay, great. Let me go to a bank or a factoring company or whatever. And they're going to be like, okay, great. Send me your last 2 years of financials, give me your forecast. All of these additional documentations. Like, do you have that lined up? Like, do you have what you need to like get? You can't, like, just the PO is not enough. They're going to want to ask sometimes it requires like underwriting. Like a lot of times you will have to like personally guarantee something. Do the terms make sense? Like, are you going to spend, like, that's why that margin thing is so important, because it's like, all right, like this, it adds an additional cost. Like financing affects your COGS too. So it's like, hey, does this make sense? Like, what can I afford to?
Yeah, with the interest rates, wow, this is really killing our margin.
Yeah, and then another, like, back to the margin thing is, you can't have super tight, like, I've very rarely ever seen a run or a sale that you don't have like some chargeback in one way or another. Like you need to have that like cushion to know, like, hey, I made a sale for 100 grand, like I'll probably get like 95 back. You need that room for error. It's not like e-commerce where you can be like, okay, maybe you can have like some rate of returns, or you can have a policy that says we don't do returns at all, and then that's your money and you can fight a chargeback. I mean, and the chargebacks are one-off, like per customer. It's not like, hey, I'm fighting $200,000 of chargeback.
Yes. Yeah. So I love it. That was a great deep dive onto the problems that you run into with big box retail and when you go wholesale. Because I guarantee you everything you talked about is going to strike such a chord with any of these e-commerce operators. So that was great advice. Now, bringing it all together, obviously, this is something Luminous is clearly passionate about, but it takes a special system to be able to merge those two operations. Big box retail, EDI, specialty wholesale, e-commerce, plugging into other tools.
Amazon.
What is Amazon? Yeah.
Amazon, which is a channel that any company can be on. You want to try to get on Amazon.
Yeah. What's been your experience? I know you did a big discovery process where I swear you looked at like every single tool. What's been your journey finding an IMS, an inventory management system, or an ERP?
I talked to everybody. I literally had a week where I just talked to everyone, and a lot of it came down to pricing. A lot of it kind of I didn't want to get like a Salesforce. I didn't want to get something crazy. Not that you would get Salesforce.
Why? Yeah. Well, why not something like a Salesforce or like NetSuite, like a massive system?
We were just so that dedicated point of contact thing was really important to me because we just had such a bad taste in our mouth from the other 3PL, which I do want to touch on before we finish, because I think that every e-commerce operator should know, so they know what to look for before they kind of find things out the hard way when it's not going well. We were too small for a lot of the major ones, and I think a lot of the major ones either like cater to brands that are just doing such large volumes. But what I guess I would rather focus it on like what I really liked about Luminous or why it was such a good fit after like evaluating every single one under the sun is the most important thing. Like, you guys were honestly the only ones or one of the only ones that was able to offer me like EDI integration in like under 2 weeks. Everyone else is telling me like, oh, you need to have a custom development firm, or it's going to be like 2 to 3 months and it's going to be $2,000 to $5,000. And you guys were able to like set it up really quickly and test it very quickly. And that multi-channel visibility is just really important. Like, because we have for each SKU different bill of materials and costing and lead times, and each retailer has different costs associated with doing business with them, like the cost of working on Shopify, right? You have other fees that go into that. You have shipping, right? So let's say you're gonna subsidize part of the shipping with your customer, or a company like Target where I'm selling it at a lower price point. And it's impossible without a platform like Luminous to be able to plan for your business and manufacturing cycles without having visibility into like where your money is coming from and where you're making what money. Because like you kind of want to push into where you're making the most money, you know? And then let's say everyone has limited inventory. So sometimes for us, it's like, we are really lucky that we sell out a lot. And sometimes we'll get inventory in and I'm like, how do I want to allocate this? How much do I want to make available for e-commerce? How much do I want to make available for retail? Because I know I'm going to have these orders at the end of the year. And what I loved about Luminous, which I'm sure like other ones did, but it wasn't like a huge selling point for me because of the way you guys do it, is because your forecasting is integrated with the lead times and the bill of materials. Not only are you guys able to tell me like, hey, you're going to sell out, but it's like, hey, you need to order more of this in specific, or, you know, you can generate your POs and your invoices from there. So it was like a centralized place where I could see everything. And then like, I have a board to answer to. We have investors. Like, it's not just, oh, I'm taking data points in order to like make good decisions. It's like, I have to then go, you know, let's say I'm doing another round of fundraising, like why? Or, hey, we're about to make this huge purchase, 6-figure investment, like why? And I can say, oh, you know, I've also been doing a lot of like fundraising. And when you have those forecasting tools, I'm not there manually recalibrating a spreadsheet to send to a bank, hey, this is what I think my volumes are going to be, or my velocity is over the next year.
Amazing. Yeah, so many people, there's so many operators who are in that phase, and it's so difficult to find a tool out there. I mean, that was my background in e-commerce operations too. So no, I appreciate you sharing that.
And when I reached out to you guys, like I talked to you, like I got to talk to the founder. And one thing I also thought was really special that you guys have done for us is Josh was always so perceptive on feedback that we'd give, to where he'd be like, hey, let me talk to the team and see if we can do this. Or, hey, getting the feedback to like inform the development team on what features are you guys going to come out with, or like identifying our pain points, which like as a product manager, like I really value, because that's how you like deliver great things. And that was like not even on the radar for the other companies I talked to.
Yeah, Josh is an absolute stud too. He's amazing.
I'm excited to work with you guys again for a drink company.
Yeah, it'll be good. Now I want to make sure we dive into some of the horror stories that you've been through. So please, can you tell us about this ops horror story with your 3PL? What happened? And
I literally have bad dreams. Like I've had bad dreams reliving it.
Yeah, and let us know what people can learn to avoid that.
Yeah. That's also like why it's so like jarring for me, because I still think about like how could I have like avoided this situation. So long story short, one of our best selling SKU, whether it's e-commerce or retail takes a certain case back, but e-commerce is singles, obviously. So I think maybe it could have been solved if I had set it up a different way. But anyway, when I joined, we had within our 3PL a SKU that's it's pre-kitted in 2-packs, and then a SKU that was like for e-commerce and singles. And the way I figured this out is because we factor our accounts receivables. So I get a PO, I fulfill it, I ship it out, and then bank advances me the money for the PO, and then they collect it on the back end based on payment terms, and then they take a cut. So we had a great holiday season. I'm like, we killed it. Like, we had all this money. I could use it for, driving more manufacturing. And then the factoring company called me and they're like, hey, what's going on with these invoices? Like, we're getting paid half. We're getting paid like there's these like chargebacks and things like that. And I'm like,
so like half of the money that you're supposed to get was just missing.
Some.
What?
Yeah. And it sucks because resolving a chargeback is not something that's like next day. Like, you have to go through a dispute system and you have to, gather the right documentation and have all your BOLs and your like all like the paper trail that's associated with fulfillment. And it also sucked because you were advanced that money. So like any additional orders that come in would go against the money that effectively the bank is owed. So I'm like, what is going on? Like, why? Like, we were doing so good. Like, why are these invoices being short paid? And it took a very long time to figure out. And that was also something that I just advised against people going with huge 3PLs because their internal, like all the people that they have to engage and the director of this and the head of this and go back to their team. And like, it's not like working with you guys where I get like a response like, okay, or like, hey, what's going on? Like, and also depending on the seniority you're talking to, like each person has only a certain amount of leverage. So what I found out is that somewhere during the receiving process of our most recent like manufacturing run, they were taking like, let's say I had like, I don't know, 2,000 2-packs and I had 1,000 singles. And I remember when I joined, because like the warehouse is in California and also we're talking about thousands of dollars. Like, I can't go into the warehouse and be like 1, 2, 3. Like, I'm trusting them. That's why you outsource like 3PL. It's because you're going to tell me you're going to tell me my inventory is, you're going to ship it, and I'm going to trust you.
Yep.
And somewhere along the way, let's say they had like 2,000 2-packs and 1,000 singles, and a new order came in, they had a work order to stock. Somewhere along the way, they like took the new dolls coming in and put the singles under the 2-pack SKU.
Oh no.
And so then you don't know, your inventory count is suddenly not accurate.
Wait, so you fulfilled the retail order that should have been a bundle of 2, but you sent ones. You sent singles. Oh shit. And then we didn't figure out until like we got a charge back from the factoring company being like, hey, you guys like, and then our target metrics were like, hey, you have 50%, like you didn't fully fill these POs. And I'm like, what do you mean I didn't? I checked with the 3PL when I joined. Hey, can you confirm that this is this at $2,000 or is this 2,000 2-packs, which is $4,000? I had it in writing and everything. So that was a lot of fun. Everything like turned out great. We came to amicable resolutions. That's how we even target referred good.
Like a new 3PL that I love that is giving like has just I talked to the founders there and just it's a great experience. But the biggest advice, the only like advice I can give that I could have solved this, because I had to, let's just say it's like something that's like a little bit still ongoing. And I asked them, I'm like, how could have this been fixed? Like, what would, like, was I supposed to fly to California and do your guys' job for you in the inventory counts? Like, it clearly says in the 2-pack SKU the double weight. the picture shows a 2-pack. Like what? Like how could I have fixed this? And they're like, I don't know what you mean by that. I'm like, okay, right. Sorry you feel that way. The solution that I've come to is, so when you work with a platform, like let's say you make a Twitter account or, you know, you have to agree to terms and conditions, right? You have to check the box. I agree to terms and conditions. A lot of platforms you can't even work without agreeing to their terms and conditions.
Right.
However, the way, from my understanding that I've been, you know, taught is that if you have a discrepancy or an issue with a partner or retailer or whatever, a vendor, if only one of you has terms, like, you know, Shopify or your e-commerce, like you have your terms, your certain policies. If one party has terms and the other party doesn't, the party that has terms, they trump regardless. It's very challenging to fight that. So the advice that I've received is that you should have your own terms and have it very clear in there if something is done. Like some companies have terms that are like, a breach of this, we'll max out at $10,000. Like even if we breach our terms or we cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars, we'll pay out a maximum of this. And so looking back, had I known that, it's really important to, you know, that little legal investment can save you like so much money. Like a lot of law firms have like boilerplate terms that you can use. And that's also why I prefer working with like a smaller company, because you can have those like back and forth conversations and be like, hey, what happens in the event of chargebacks? Who's responsible for what? What if we determine that it's your fault? How is it? How do we like fix it? Versus, you know, you just sign up and you're like, yeah, terms and conditions, and there isn't that back and forth like self sign up.
Yeah, it's so getting a contract to protect you on the fringe cases, and then what if, for example, what if you go to this massive 3PL, you give them these terms and conditions, you give them a contract, and they say, nope, we're not going to sign this. You just try to find somebody who actually will, where you can be a little bit more protected.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is like those big 3PLs, the people that you're working with, like they don't have the wiggle room to make those decisions. So maybe they'll escalate it and you'll have to get like a custom contract, which I have seen done before. But if you don't come armed with that knowledge of like, hey, these are things that could go wrong, to know, I was like, you can do that? And they're like, yeah, of course you can do, like, yeah, you can do it. And I'm like, wow, that's not even something I would think about. You know, you probably can't do it with like a Shopify, but you can set your own terms within that platform because that's who you're doing business with. You know, but yeah, if you have that knowledge, you can go to a large 3PL and see if it's even an option or what they're willing to like work with you on. And you have like your own contract with them. Like that is possible. But if you don't know to ask for it, it's not. And you're like, okay, I need to agree to their terms. Like be like, we have our own terms.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And
startups don't want to spend money on legal usually, and I get it. Yeah. I get it. But like, you are hiring a 3PL because you're not going to have your own warehouse. You're not going to have your own fulfillment. Like, you want to make sure that they're 100% in doing what, like, misrepresenting inventory is crazy. Like, I'm selling based on what you said that exists.
Yes.
So it happens all the time. Like, yeah. That's my biggest nightmare.
I want you to speak to all of the e-commerce operators in the world. As we start closing down the podcast, what pitfalls should they watch out for as they scale? Like, how would you summarize a lot of these things we talked about? Because you've talked about like learning. Go in, learn your business, and sounds like document it, like put some processes. I know that's something that you've been really good at.
Yeah, especially as a consultant when I'm coming into a company and being like, hey, like I'm not doing things end to end with you, but I want to set you guys up in a way where you can hire other people and make their jobs easy. The biggest pitfall I would say is like, if you don't have, and this might just come from like my on the more traditional side of my background, like you should have a supply chain map. Like, I'm a visual person. That's the first thing I do with any of my clients is like, all right, so tell me, I want to see end to end, like what are the functional areas of your business? And they're like talking to me and they're like, oh, this too. And I'm like, is there somewhere where I can look at it where you can see, okay, this is like the flow? And they're like, oh no, I'm just, like, how do you know what to order? And they're like, oh, well, I just like feel it. And I'm like, yeah, that'll get you, like, you can feel it up to like $3 million. Like you totally can. But it's like, once you want to be like, I don't know, anything over 3 million, like if you have aspirations of like, hey, I want to exit either to like, who knows, maybe like a private equity fund, or I want to be, acquired by a huge player in the space, a publicly traded company, like you need to be able to scale. And scaling is like, if you're hiring, usually like once you're at the point where, let's say you're hiring like an analyst position, or you're hiring like a associate or someone who's like strictly operating, like not really making decisions or defining strategy, like you should probably give them like a handbook of how do you do your job, or what happens in this situation, or where are you documenting things? How are you consolidating orders? Like,
I really like that, because a lot of e-commerce operators, they parachute into a business and like, where do you even start? Well, that's some good advice. Like, just start with a visual map. Like, draw on a sheet of paper. Like, I buy from here, and then it comes here, and then it goes to these places. I agree. That's really good practical advice.
These are my payment terms. These are the carriers I work with. This is where I document and keep by order all of my, so the proof of delivery, the invoice, the PO, like all of that stuff. Who am I fulfilling to? What platforms and systems am I using? ShipStation for this? Where's Shopify? How does Pods and Pod Foods and Air Goods, fit into all of this? Am I bringing on DoorDash? Am I bringing on Macy's? Like, how does that work? And then for each one, having like a tutorial of like, hey, how do you contract a carrier? Where do the documents go? Like, that's the best way that you can start growing.
I really like that. Imagine, you could totally do some cool things. My software brain is going crazy right now. Like, imagine if Luminous could have imagine if in onboarding we had a supply chain map. It was like literally a physical map that showed the flow of goods, and then within all of those, there's like SOPs for each one of those flows. That actually be
That's what I
cool.
do. That's what I do for all of my
So
clients.
you already do that. Nice.
Yep, I already do it. Yeah, that's like the most. It also is cool because it's relevant for like the entire company, because like even if, let's say, you're joining as like customer experience or like customer support, like you should know how the business that you're working for like functions and operates. And then it's also a really good tool for like anyone you bring in, even in marketing, like, hey, this is how we work. And then that's how you can optimize. You can be like, hey, this lead time is actually really crazy, or this is a bottleneck. Like, how do we reduce risk? So yeah, just start with
awesome.
the whiteboard.
Well, where can people find you? So obviously you've talked a little about, you have consulting services. How can somebody find you, and who's a good fit for your consulting services?
Yeah, so right now the best way to find me is through LinkedIn. I love working with founders that are either like in really early stage growth. So I actually love working with people who are like, hey, I just got a bunch of funding. Like, what do I do? Like, how do I deliver? How do I budget? Like, what should I be spending on? Like, because at that stage, like, you want to be super lean. Like, you want to be super lean, like, till you're farther out. And then I also love working with kind of founders that are more in like a mid-stage phase, where they're looking to position themselves for big box retailers, or they're like, I'm looking to, even onboard with Amazon, like deciding, are you going to do fulfilled by Amazon? Are you going to do self-fulfillment? How does their platforms work? Like, what kind of volume do you need to predict for? And in that same vein, just because growth and CPG is so capital heavy, like we talked about earlier, like making sure all your ducks in a row for private fundraising, or even if you want to do a friends and family round, like you should be able to speak to, and like, what if eventually you want to get to a point in 3 years, you're going to do like a real like Series A, or like a real round, or you want to get like a big loan. Like, you don't want to scramble, like you don't want to like scramble to get all of your finances in order at the point where you really need the money. Like, that should be something you take time doing, so then when you go there, you're like, hey, I have everything you need. Like, you don't want to do it when you're like I need the money
at the
like, next week.
11th hour.
Yeah. So setting things up for private fundraising or financing, and just like overall making, and optimizing supply chain more efficient, just like because of my business background and like the type of person I am, like I really care about the bottom line. So it's like, cool, we can operate, but like, are we actually making money? And my job is to make sure like we continue to make money, we continue to make more money through things that we can control. So yeah, implementing systems that can kind of let you plan better instead of firefighting, like being able to do forecasting. If you hate telling people no because you just don't have the inventory, by having systems in place that allow you to like look ahead, you can plan your like 3 or 4 production runs in advance or multiple seasons.
Yeah, and I think so. It sounds like if you're consulting customers, what you're going to offer is you're going to be able to parachute into the business, map everything out, write SOPs, and help set them up for success in the future for you as a fractional person running the company, but also when they bring somebody in house, you'll have SOPs set up so that they can actually scale into those roles.
Yeah, and
Amazing.
I've spent so much time vetting different like vendors or partners, and I have a lot of like relationships with, hey, are you considering getting into this? How do you sell to a big, how do you approach retailers? Like, what other sales channels are you looking at? You're having all these problems. I mean, like, look at with Jang. I'm like, hey, they're like, we have this issue and I don't know how we're going to solve for this. And I'm like, have you ever heard of Luminous? And the CFO I work with there, he's like, I mean, my first part of my career, I did SAP implementations, but we're not there yet. I'm like, we're not there yet. Like, if I can bring my breadth of expertise across so many different industries and vendors and partners with that like lean operations mentality, like I'm always going to like, it sounds cheapy, but I'm always going to try to spend the least possible. Like, I want to spend the least amount of money possible with the max value. And like, I'm never going to tell a client like, hey, we need this and it's $5,000 a month. No, but we really need it. It's really good. Like, okay, yeah, it might be really good, but like you're gonna go out, like you're gonna go out of business. So founders who are ready to like look at their operations in a holistic way that want to scale. Yeah, I can go in and we can like stabilize things, but I definitely find that I add the most value and also have the most fun when we're like, okay, cool, we're here now, but like, how much do I make in 2 years? What do you want to do? Do you want to make $3 million? How do we get you from like 500 to like $1 million? And then that
awesome.
Really excites founders. Yeah, it excites me too because I love like achieving goals. So
that's cool. Okay, well, we're running out of time right now. So last part is just other than LinkedIn, your personal LinkedIn, is there anywhere else that people can follow you on? Instagram or Twitter? X, sorry.
Honestly, right now, no, which is kind of why I was excited to do this podcast because I haven't been able to spend a lot of time in like cultivating a personal brand. And I'm really lucky that because of like the relationships and reputation I built, like I've never looked for a client. Like people get referred to me, recommended to me. So no, for now, LinkedIn is really good. Hopefully
awesome.
In the future, I'll have something else, but yeah, right now it's just LinkedIn.
Well, you're gonna have some awesome clips from this podcast. But that's something we do with all of our guests. Is you'll just have some really solid looking, edited, chopped up clips that'll make you look really good.
Awesome. Yeah, that's good. And I mean, ultimately, like I'm passionate about supply chain, and it sounds like I'm passionate about like my perspective of how I contribute to like the economy and how we get goods into consumers. So like, I hope I can. My goal is to reach more clients and help impact more businesses and like grow them and make more jobs, and just like that's my contribution to the world right now.
That's amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Alessandra, for joining us on Ops Unfiltered, and we'll catch up soon. Hopefully we'll have you on again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.